Good morning, everyone. I am April Sabanal, a BLIS third-year student of NUNESCOS. For today's video, I am going to discuss Chapter 7, Qualitative Research Methods. This chapter reviews the underlying principles of naturalistic work, ethical concerns, data gathering techniques, analysis tools and methods, and ensuring analytic integrity. Underlying principles of naturalistic work. Critical realism posits that both the physical and conceptual components of reality are essential to understanding and eventually improving the human condition. The flexibility and sensitivity of the human instrument are critical to understanding this complexity. Naturalism as a research paradigm. Critical theory underpins many aspects of qualitative research that developed from the Marxist approach to social research. It pushes for wide analytic lenses that more fully account for the social, cultural, political, and economic complexities of modern society. The drive to mitigate or even dissolve social injustice underpins the choice of research questions, methodology, and analysis. From a political perspective, the bias of qualitative work generates emphasis on alternative voices, support for social justice studies, and resistance against straightforward solutions to complex problems. Naturalism in LIS research. Social work and information studies have lagged behind academic disciplines in adopting new theoretical and methodological trends, with almost 20% of high-profile journal articles classed as qualitative. No significant shift in the balance of LIS methodologies appears. In between these two extremes lie a range of mixed methods approaches. Rule of mixed or multi-method research. The mixed methods approach posits as a false dichotomy the absolute forced choice of either qualitative or quantitative methods. Basic principles guide the mixed method design. Determine and adhere to the theoretical impetus underpinning the project. Drive the assumptions of the base method. Employ only the essential data sets. Ethical concerns. Confidentiality is just as important for information seekers as it is for any other population. Feminist research raises ethical concerns from a political and social perspective. Post-colonial, postmodern, and transnational approaches to these examinations of power dynamics have pushed discussions among all qualitative researchers. At what point does a sort of emotional exploitation occur? At what point is rapport disingenuous? These questions become particularly critical in participatory action research. Research questions and data analysis that focus primarily on the deficits of a particular community or population may lack the premise of fairness demanded by any ethical standard. Data gathering techniques. The act of gathering data for a qualitative study is an involving process rooted in ongoing analysis. Almost all data gathering is to some extent socially constructed. The interaction between two or more people is created within the context of the individuals involved. It involves factors such as race, range, sex, gender, socioeconomic class, and more. Sampling. No single formula provides the correct sample size for a qualitative study. Researchers should include two or more participants in demographic categories, contextual subgroups, and locations. Saturation refers to the point at which of the critical elements of the study have become saturated. The most common sampling techniques in qualitative studies follow the thread of purpose, rather than the probabilistic sampling of a positivist approach. The naturalist approach starts with a purpose for working with one type of participant rather than with another. In LIS research, the following methods may be most useful. Observation. Observation is a potentially effective means of deepening the field's understanding of human behavior. Carefully documented watching and or listening may be augmented with interviewing and the collection of artifacts. Researchers are expected to prepare, gather data, respect participants, and analyze data. The observer considers activities, attitudes, and relationships in all their variation through multiple observations. The choice of observation techniques depends on the setting and purpose of the research. An ethnographic approach requires moving into the setting as deeply as possible while disturbing the participants as little as possible. Interviews. Interview formats include critical incident interviews, in-depth interviews, and focus group interviews. Format of initial data plays a role in determining the most effective use of interview data. LIS professionals have an established use of online synchronous interviews, online asynchronous interviews, and virtual focus groups. Interviewing can be quite appealing to the informants even when payment is employed as an incentive. Well-conducted in-depth interviews can develop narratives along the lines of most immediacy for the participant while also providing the researcher with the opportunity to include focused questions that fill in gaps. Digital interviews can be cost and time efficient and reach participants not readily reached by other means such as through phone or face-to-face contact with the person they are interviewing. Documents, questionnaires, diaries, journals, papers, and more. Questionnaires vary by means of delivery. In person, telephone, mail, email, WW, and point of contact. And format. Open-ended questions, attitudinal skills, multiple choice questions, ratings, and rankings. The written word can be a source of narrative or qualitative data. Self-reported diaries are often used in conjunction with interviews and other data gathering techniques. They can provide great depth and detail when participants fully engage in the project. Event sampling is a variation on this approach that focuses participant attention on the areas of most interest to the researcher. Data analysis tools and methods. Whatever theory, design, or working hypothesis eventually develops must grow naturally from the analysis of data rather than standing to the side as a prior statement that will affirm or refute. This integration of data collection and analysis is central to qualitative work. Discourse analysis. The purpose of discourse analysis is to study the routes taken by what is said and how it refutes, borrows, opposes, adopts, manipulates, ignores, appropriates, and buries what has been said. Discourse analysis can be linguistically or culturally based. Content analysis basics. Data analysis involves working with data, organizing it, breaking it into manageable units, synthesizing it, discovering what is important and what is to be learned. Data in text, image, or mixed formats that are appropriate for content analysis requires cohesion, intentionality, acceptability, informativity, situationality, and intertextuality. Content analysis terms. A datum is a unit of information that is recorded in a durable medium. Categories organize each datum by grouping it in with others that share similar denotations or connotations. Themes cluster categories that share some commonality such as reference to a single issue. Field notes should answer six essential questions as much as possible, both during and after the data gathering. The coding manual contains the final results of decisions made on the definition, hierarchy, and relationships of codes. The constant comparative method of content analysis. The constant comparative method, codified by Glaser and Strauss, 122, is generally recognized as one of the most effective means of qualitative content analysis. Substantive theory refers to specific areas such as OPAC, use and internet search strategies. Formal theory refers to conceptual areas like information seeking patterns and relevance criteria. Coding data. Coding is the constant comparative method for analyzing data. Coding identifies the main categories as well as associated subcategories. Diagrams, mapping, flowcharts, and mind maps help track relationships. Memos track reasoning, insights, and questions. The process ends when theoretical development and coding is complete. Coding requires an iterative process of identifying themes, identifying subthemes, pulling out critical themes or subthemes. For deeper analysis, structuring a hierarchical set of codes, developing those codes and their definition into a documented codebook. Applying the codes, linking codes, and using the linkages and themes to develop theory. Coding techniques. No single mechanism exists for determining the categories in which the data are sorted. Computer software can be used for the obvious task as well as specialized tasks to make data analysis less cumbersome. CDC EasyText is a software program developed to assist researchers in creating semi-structured, qualitative databases. Researchers can design a series of data entry templates tailored to their questionnaire. Dual or multiple coding is appropriate when multiple meanings, connotations, or denotations are involved. Moving from codes to theory. After all the data has been coded, analysis reveals a framework of patterns and contrast from which, in some cases, theory can be developed. Data can be organized by categories, themes, and concepts to provide a framework that supports the move from coding to theory. Ensuring coding integrity. The reliability of data and codes must be maintained prior to test coding. A well-constructed and detailed coding manual, replete with definitions and examples, should tie consistently to memos to create a lucid explanation of each code and category. Other sources can be used to confirm inferences from data, codes, and categories. Developing grounded theory. Grounded theory is both a method of developing theory and a category of theory. The originator's premise is that theory can be constructed through systematic, deliberate iterations of data gathering, data analysis, and mid-level theory generation. Glaser, Strauss, and Corbin urge the use of XCL coding. Corbin advocate emergent coding. Ensuring integrity. The techniques discussed below focus on ensuring the integrity, trustworthiness, and value of naturalistic data gathering and analysis, as well as the theory of working hypotheses that results from them. Failed studies can be models of rigor, requiring the researcher to develop and apply systematic mechanisms for documenting all aspects of the research process. Primary techniques. Coordinated collection of sufficient data is ensured through the use of prolonged engagement, persistent observation, and triangulation. Extending the time in the field and increasing the number of observations provide more data. Peer debriefing requires submitting the research process and resultant analysis to an unaffiliated and perhaps critical peer for rigorous review. Negative case analysis requires developing and revising a theory, model, or hypothesis until it accounts for every known case. Coordinating data gathering systematically, however flexibly, requires audits, explicit recording instructions, and a personal log of data gathering and analysis. Additional techniques. In addition to the standard techniques for seeking reliability and avoiding bias, authors Miles and Hoberman also list a number of tactics for attaining it. These include counting, noting patterns or themes, seeing plausibility, clustering, and factoring. Presentation of findings. In writing a journal article, for example, an author may be required to fully explain the paradigmatic approach underlying all of the research design decisions. Quality controls must be adjusted to context, and the process details, exemplars, and timelines should be written up fully enough to provide sufficient information. In many cases, researchers must make active decisions about giving voice to the participants of a study. Findings that are shared, presented, published, and indexed become the embodiment of those choices. Researchers have an ethical obligation to reach practitioners, educate the public, involve research and funding partners, and become part of the policy discourse. Summary. LIS scholars must maintain a solid grounding in the purpose behind their work. Qualitative research methods enrich and augment the toolbox of LIS research approaches. When properly employed, They provide data, insights, models, hypotheses, and theories that move society towards solutions.
Thank you for watching.